Okay, I think we can get started. It looks like everybody has made it in, and want to first and foremost thank you all for joining us this afternoon. This is our webcast regarding Taleo migration over to Oracle recruiting, and it does encompass either edition of Taleo. And we're going to be talking about what that process will look like for you if you choose to move over to Oracle recruiting cloud product. Next slide, Calvin. So today's agenda will be, I'm going to introduce us briefly for those of you on the phone who don't know who we are. We're going to talk about some signs that it may be time to transition over to Oracle Cloud Recruiting. We'll talk about our program on how we do the transformation and the variety of adoption paths that you could utilize. So about us, on the line today with me is Calvin Hare. Calvin runs our HCM practice here in North America, and actually his background is with Taleo and Oracle. He spent over the last 15 years implementing Taleo and now implements Oracle Cloud Recruiting as well. So we feel like he's a good person to speak with us about migration paths. And also I have Raj Shah on the line. He manages our HCM practice here in North America, and he himself has also done many of our Oracle Recruiting Cloud projects here. My name is Bonnie McMahon. I'm Vice President of Sales, and I too worked at Taleo back in the day and have a long history with talent acquisition. Next slide, Calvin. All of us work at Evosys. Evosys is actually a global provider of cloud implementation services, including implementation. We have over 1,000 cloud customers across 30 countries around the world, and we employ about 1,500 consultants. And if you look here, you'll see that we are HCM specialists, especially if you look at our Taleo number there. We've actually implemented more Taleo software projects than any other vendor in the Oracle ecosystem, approximately 740 clients of Taleo. So super proud of that number. We also focus on moving on-premise clients that maybe use eBusiness or PeopleSoft or JDE over to the Oracle Cloud. And we're super proud of the fact that we did win Oracle's HCM Partner of the Year award last year. And prior to that, we won the Development Partner of the Year. So we're super proud of those numbers because I think it speaks to our commitment to Oracle HCM. Next slide, Calvin. So a couple of reasons why, thanks, Calvin. You know, people work with us because of our strong HCM experience as well as our expertise for our quality of delivery and multi-pillar experience. And I think I went through most of this slide earlier. You can keep going, Calvin. I think everyone got the point that we're HCM experts. Next slide.
Move the slide forward. It's not moving. Hold on.
Oh boy.
Webinar keeps popping up.
We love technology, right? There we go. Yeah. Thank you. And here is some of our clients that we've implemented Oracle recruiting here in the US for, or across the globe actually. And I think you'll see the range of different industries, different size companies, and all successful so far. So next slide, Kelvin.
Yep.
So a couple of things. I'm going to
go ahead and roll through these.
Okay, thank you. A couple things, like here are some key indicators that you may be ready to move on to Oracle Recruiting Cloud. For those of you who've had Taleo over 5 years, maybe you haven't done some updates yet, maybe you've outgrown it, maybe you've actually changed your recruiting processes and are approaching your recruiting for your organization in a different style. That is a lot of folks that we see today that are moving over. Maybe you're actually having trouble identifying internal candidates, or maybe you really want to use digital assistants. These are also some of the reasons we've seen people move over to Oracle Cloud Recruiting. Also, for people who want to do marketing campaigns, there's some nice functionality in Oracle Recruiting cloud that actually would help you do that. And the number one reason, before I get into any of these, the number one reason we see people moving over to Oracle Cloud Recruiting is they have a Oracle HCM and they do no longer want to do an integration. They want everything on one platform. So that's probably the biggest benefit you'll get from moving over. Now, other things too, right? Social recruiting with the LinkedIn and so forth, and texting or SMS capability. All of these things can be addressed in Oracle Cloud Recruiting. So I'm going to pass it over to Calvin. He's going to go through our program and what to look for and so forth based on his experience. I want to encourage everybody to ask questions while you're on the line. If you do have a question, we can take them as they come. You can use the question icon on your toolbar. And with that, Calvin, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Appreciate everybody's time today. Again, my name's Calvin Hare. I'm with Evosys and been doing Taleo and other talent acquisition for a really long time. Today, like Bonnie said, we're going to focus on, the title of this is How to Migrate from Taleo over to Oracle Recruiting. So we're going to spend a lot of time on a methodology that we've developed. And that methodology is developed, based on knowledge of both systems. And, anytime you're transitioning to a system, I think what we find is certainly customers that have not been successful, one of the things they miss up front is that you need to pay attention to the system you're going from when you're going to a new system. And the more you know about that system can certainly help you, migrate over to the new system. So Evosys, being as large of a, Taleo implementer and the experience we have implementing, both Taleo applications has uniquely positioned us to, develop a very efficient methodology. We call it Glide. To transition customers from Taleo over to Oracle Recruiting. We've done many of them, so we know what to expect. We know where some of the gaps are. We have templates involved, and I'm going to go into more of those as we go through this. But we also have some slides at the end if we have time to just kind of highlight some of the functionalities of Oracle Recruiting. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I imagine most of the people on the line have seen it. You have an interest in migrating to it. So we're not spending a lot of time on those, but we'll cover some of that at the end if we have time and folks are interested in staying on. But on this slide, just Bonnie highlighted a couple things, and really most of you realize, I think, that Oracle Recruiting is a native module of HCM. So that top right one with the integrations, obviously with Taleo, it's another module. You have to integrate it, and we've done implementations where customers have done maybe one or two integrations, some have done none. What we always like to see with Taleo, of course, was a full set of bidirectional integrations, so basically keeping it in sync with your HR system. But that's another thing to build and maintain. And now with OR, you don't have to worry about that. Your recruiting module is part of your HCM. It accesses your job table directly. It accesses your employee talent profile directly. Your internal candidates can be leveraged, like the identifying top internal candidates. It knows who your employees are. It knows what their experience is. It can do an intelligent matching of those internal candidates to job, to job needs. So all that comes, by just getting a native module, which it's just huge. So I don't know if we should put that one first or put it by itself, but also it's the latest, applicant tracking recruiting application. It's been built to best practices, have the ability to do texting, social, so it comes with everything. With that said, you guys probably understand it, you know it, that's why you're interested in it. What we're going to talk about now is how we implement it and what we've developed based on our experience. If I can get this screen to change. Should be easy, but it's not. There we go. We call it our Glide program, and we've developed a number of these Glide programs for applications that we have great knowledge of on both the the one you're transitioning from and the one you're transitioning to. It's developed based on these four pillars, really, these four key areas. First is you start the project by looking at your existing system, assessment of the configuration. We know how Taleo works, and so we can glean a lot of information by looking at Taleo systems, looking at documentation. We have pre-built templates, that are built based on Taleo configurations that can help us in data migration and configuration of OR. And so that, we don't start the project just by coming in and say, all right, what do you want to do? Let's look at best practices, how to set up OR. We first ask you a lot of questions about what you're doing. I'm going to say some more about those too, but so let's move through on the second one. I mean, that's where we leverage again our best practice knowledge when it comes to OR, and that is, we know the application, we know how it works, we know what's best practice, so we use our consulting expertise to help you implement a system that works for you. There's a lot of different ways to implement systems, and I've been in situations where an implementer will come in there and say, all right, what do you want? Let's just check the boxes, we're implemented, boom, done. But the system isn't really set up to be successful. As a premier Oracle partner, Oracle relies on us, we rely on Oracle. We have to be successful. If we're not successful, we don't make their customers, happy and successful, then, we're not going to get that partnership. We're not going to win that Partner of the Year award by any means. So we focus a lot on making sure that the system meets the customer's needs. And that's what that second block is about, is using our expertise, your subject matter experts, to make sure that the system fits your organization and delivers what it needs to deliver. Second one is our, combination of all those templates and everything that we use to do a very rapid implementation. Based on being done, doing this before. So, it's not something that's going to take 6 or 8 months. Realistically, you could do it in 2 to 3 months, with this program. And then finally, we don't go away, the day of go live. We have various support services. All our implementations include at least, some post-go live support. But then we need to make sure that you're supported, because, the worst thing we can do is leave you with an application that you don't know how to support, you're not sure how to use, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm going to go into each one of these a little more individually. I know I've said a lot already, so we'll try to not replicate information if possible. Let's go the right way. This is part of the assessment. A lot of customers will ask, well, what does that mean? What are some of the things you look at? And I talked about some of those, but these are some of the blocks, some of the information that we will, look at as part of this assessment. What's your current Taleo configuration? We're asked a lot of questions as to what's working, what isn't. What kind of bottlenecks are you having in the system? What are you doing as far as workaround? How the system isn't working for you? Those are certainly things we want to, address in a new system, and that's just, part of good consulting, to understand where the pain points are today and make sure we address those in the implementation. Another piece is integrations and data migration. Obviously, how is Taleo, implemented? How is it integrated? Is the data in Taleo kept in sync with your HRIS? How good do you feel about that data? Do you need to migrate that data over? And that's something that some customers either choose to do or not choose to do, and it depends on really how well that system is implemented and how good you feel about that data. Because a new system always gives you the opportunity to, try to get fresh information, or gives you the opportunity to bring that information over. So that's something we spend a lot of time on to decide what's best, for the system at that point. Also, the OR functionality. A lot of it is built, similar to what Taleo Enterprise is. You'll see some similarities as you get into it, but it does some things differently. So we need to understand, based on requirements, how the functionality of OR is going to fit, how you can leverage some of the additional functionality. We're not just looking to lift and shift what you have in Taleo over to OR. We want to take advantage of what the new system will offer. Of course, best practices. We always design the best practices, and best practices change. We implement these systems very differently now than we did even 4 or 5 years ago. The environment's completely changing. Used to be that, a longer application was acceptable and even desired. You want to capture all that information up front. Now, it's all about the speed. If you can't get a, millennial or whatever the new generation is to fill out that application on a mobile device with one hand while they're sipping a coffee or latte in the other hand, it's probably not a good situation. They're probably saying, this company doesn't have its act together. I want to go elsewhere. So it's all about the efficiency of the process, and not just on the candidate side. It's on, it's about the users too. Is everything they're doing, every click, so to speak, actionable? Are you capturing information that's meaningful? What are you doing with it? And we want to make sure that the system is implemented, as efficiently as possible. And every time a recruiter or a hiring manager or a candidate is clicking or inputting a piece of data, that it's for a purpose and it's actually collected at the right time. What are your manual processes? This is another thing. Are you doing manual process today, even with your Taleo system, that shouldn't be, that we can automate, that we can build into this new system? OR probably has that functionality. It has more functionality than maybe ability to, automate those manual processes. And then, of course, success metrics. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Going into an implementation, you need to understand what makes it successful. So as part of this assessment, we look at, analytics. Like what are your metrics today? What are you not happy with? Where do you expect it to be in a new implementation? What are the targets, the KPIs that we need to hit? And that helps us measure the success of the implementation. Basically, the success measurement, I just mentioned that. These are some of the things that you need to look for. And we always try to pick a couple of these when we begin. Probably not all of them, but again, what are the key metrics? What are the things you're having problems with? Is it time to fill? Is it time to hire? Is it sourcing? Is it attrition? Is it the candidate experience? How long it takes the candidate to get through the application? Is it candidate drop-off that you want to address? So these are some of the things that, these are kind of standard recruiting metrics of a system. Maybe you're having, maybe some of these are fine. Maybe you're not even measuring today. Maybe you are measuring them. You realize you have some issues there, but we'd like to at least target a couple of these to say, all right, we're gonna look at what this is today, and at the end we're gonna measure this, over the last 3 months into the system and see if it's improving. So we need to know what we're shooting for and how to measure success. I'll build this one out too. From an advisory service perspective, remember again, this is our expertise. This is consulting, the best practices that we provide, and this just speaks to some of our expertise in our credibility in doing this. Again, we're the #1 OR Oracle implementation partner. We've done more implementations of Oracle recruiting at this point, I believe, than any other partner, unless somebody caught us last week or something. I don't think so, though. We've done a lot. We're global, all around the world. So we started early, and we continue to be the #1 implementer of Oracle recruiting. In addition, as you saw from our Taleo experience, 740 plus Taleo projects, we have the experience in talent acquisition over the past 15 plus years. We've seen the industry change, we've seen the best practices change, and we bring that knowledge and expertise to the table to help you build your system to the latest best practices, and then the next block, make it streamlined, make it efficient, all the experiences, whether it's candidate, recruiter, HM, like I mentioned already, best practices. And, from a transformation problem, we look at these as a transformation project. Like I said earlier, we're not looking to just, lift and shift your Taleo system and create what you have today. I mean, that's great. You're on a new system. Okay, maybe you're not integrated anymore, but are you really set up? Have you really transformed the business with this new implementation? If you haven't, you've probably missed out on some opportunities. So we like to look at areas where we're actually transforming things. We're making them better. We're making them successful. And then from an enhancement perspective, obviously, just like Taleo, very configurable system. Very, there's a lot you can do with it. But sometimes, maybe it's best not to. We always take the adage of trying to keep it simple, unless you don't need to keep it simple. Because if you keep it simple, then you are able to maintain it better. You're able to not mess with upgrades like personalization, customization. We try to avoid those unless absolutely necessary. But if we need to, we'll do it, to meet the customer's needs. But we always take the approach of keeping it as straightforward and streamlined as possible, and provide the enhancements and the customization only as is really required. All right. Next block, we go to let's get this one built out. This would be the rapid implementation, and these are some of the the building blocks of that allow us to implement this product rapidly when we're going from a Taleo application, because we know what we're coming from. And any implementation, I mean, that's key. You're going from one system to another, and a lot of the effort and time involved in that implementation is understanding the difference between those two systems. So if you already are familiar with the system you're coming from, and of course everybody's Taleo system is not the same, but the basic the basic application is the same. We know where data exists. We know where the configurations are, so we can go in and figure out what you're doing today, not just from our knowledge, but also from talking to your implementation team, your subject matter experts, and understanding where the problem areas are, like I mentioned before, to provide that accelerated implementation. We have a pre-built toolkit of data migration templates, configuration templates that help speed the process of migrating, or basically transitioning those configurations in Taleo to what they would be in OR. We start with the best practice pre-configuration. We just don't take the basic application and all right, here's the out-of-the-box application. What do you want to do? We actually go in and we pre-configure that application for your instance for best practices, some of the things we've seen and we know that almost every customer wants to do. So we're starting from a pre-configured best practice instance, and then going addressing the gaps from that point on, not just starting from scratch. And then we're implementation experts. We've done this hundreds and hundreds of times in all different industries around the globe. So we know what to expect. It's not that we're not going to run into new situations. We learn on almost every implementation. I know Raj, and I'm sure, and I, we can say the same thing. Every time you go through an implementation, you pretty much learn something new. But it's how you tuck that information away, and then in future implementations, surprise me once, shame on you. Surprise me twice, shame on me. So we're not surprised by the same information twice. Come on, screen, go. All right, from a support services perspective, this is, again, the fourth block and critically important. We're not an implementation partner that just walks away from an implementation and says, have fun. We make sure that you are able to support the implementation. We're able that you're trained, that you understand how to operate, that we've provided the training materials, not just for the team itself, but also something that you can use on an ongoing basis. To make sure that as staff turns around, that they can be trained, you can use those materials, and that's part of every implementation. It's included, but we also have a vast network of support structures. So some customers maybe have the FTEs that they need to support the product. Knowledge transfer training, we can get your team up to speed to support it, which we love to do. And again, that's a short-term support. Maybe it's 3-4 months or something like that we can work together with your team to help bring them up to speed, even after post-live support. But it's a short-term thing. And then there's other customers that we work with that said, well, I don't really have the FTEs. I want you to be my system admins. And so we have the ability to actually provide, staff augmentation, managed services. We have this for hundreds of customers around the globe that we actually provide their support services. We have a service request portal, that we leverage on the customer side to implement, to manage tickets, manage requests, so that everything's tracked and managed. So it's just, we can support you, and we want to make sure that you're supported. If you can do it in-house, great. But we want to make sure that that supporting the application on an ongoing basis is critically important. We would hate to come back 6 months or a year later and have the application not be a mess. And we don't get me wrong, we love business, but we don't like to come in and and have to to fix something because it wasn't supported well or something like that. So we we want you to be successful and get the support you need. And we have very flexible type packages, depending that we can offer for whatever the customer's needs are. And global too. If you have, since we are global, we support all time zones. We work with a number of customers that are across the globe, and so with our support organization, we have people in Asia, in UK, and Americas. That no matter what the time zone is, we have somebody that can interact with at that point. All right, that's our implementation. What I wanted to do now is actually go into some of the top reasons that we see customers transitioning into OR. Used to be called OCR, and now it's OR, so we missed a C there. So the new name is Oracle Recruiting. But these are kind of the top reasons, and we've mentioned these a lot. I'm not going to belabor them. I know everybody's time is valuable. But number one there is it's a native module. There's no integrations. I think we've talked around that. You understand what that is. The candidate experience is very engaging. It's fully mobile responsive. It can be extensively branded. It can be developed through advanced CSS as well to meet your company's career site needs. Just has a lot of flexibility there. It's got a very efficient Google type search, so it makes it easy on the candidate to apply. Deferred registration, this one's huge. And I know Taleo, just rolled this out. There is a guest apply now that you can use in Taleo, but OR is built around that functionality. It's built that all a candidate has to do is they don't have to click a guest apply and go through a registration. They just put in their email address and they start. That's how it's designed from the ground up. So I know over the years this has become a much bigger and bigger issue. We've been running dashboards and metrics reports that show candidate drop off, and you'd be surprised at the spike those get on the registration page. And also, if you're into an application, you're asking too much information in your work history and things like that, you'll see candidates just drop off because it's just too much information, takes too much of their time. So deferred registration is a huge part of keeping that candidate engaged and getting them into the application easily. And then you send them a text afterwards or code to create the registration after they've already finished it. That way they can get back in. But that way you've already captured the application. 100% mobile responsive. I mentioned this, and this is the latest mobile responsive HTML5. So it doesn't matter what device you're on. It doesn't have to sense what kind of device you're on and then send you to another application that may not be as full featured. It doesn't matter. It's just if it's portrait or landscape, if it's a phone or it's an iPad, the screen will morph and change to whatever the real estate is. So it's really done away with any kind of disadvantages of being on mobile. And this application is fully mobile responsive in all aspects. Adaptive intelligence, I mentioned that earlier on with your candidate base, certainly your talent profiles for your employees. It has the ability to intelligently match those candidates that may not even be looking, may not even be interested in a job, but it can come up with matches based on your database for those candidates. This is part of number 2, the engaging candidate experience, the multiple career page design templates. I mentioned that on how it can be branded, and number 12 is really on that too, extensible branding. That's all part of how to make that candidate experience engaging. Talent pools. Of course, it has the ability, it's built in with talent pools. It's not just the folder functionality that Taleo has. It's built in with the ability for candidates to interact with talent pools. One interface. So it looks and feels the same. It's part of HCM. It's a native module. So all the users, when they're going into OR, it's familiar. It's not like they're going into another application. It's all the same self-service, all mobile responsive across all the users within the system. SMS support. This one is huge. I know we've had a lot of requests, in the Taleo days over the years to add texting, and it can be done. You have to go through a third party, integrate it. It's a little more work, but this is supported. through the Oracle Validated integrations with SMS vendors. It's in, so it's there. And also from an analytics perspective, it comes with the business intelligence analytics, and it's all part of the HCM suite. So it's not limited to just Oracle recruiting data. You can report across all the HCM modules. You can combine information from HR with recruiting, with talent profile. So it doesn't have, some of the limitations of having an independent, ATS or recruiting module. And then chatbots, the digital assistants. I got a couple slides that I can show you, or one slide in particular that I can show you on that. That Oracle offers, of course, a digital assistant, and Evosys. With our technology, we've actually had the ability to extend the functionality of those, not only in OR, but even across the HCM suite. So there's even more we can do with those. But these are really the reasons we see customers going to OR, and probably some of the things you've already considered, and one of the reasons you're attending today is because you've heard some of this information about the system. Bonnie, do we want to? I was going to go into the system at this point a little bit, look at the slides. We could take a couple questions if there's any questions on the methodology. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of show, highlight some slides of the candidate experience and digital assistant.
Yeah, again, Calvin, I'll remind the crowd here to use the question icon on your toolbar if you have any questions, and we'd love to make this interactive. We don't have any questions yet, Calvin, so I would suggest going on to the slides, and if anyone types in a question, I'll get back to you on that.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. What we'll look at first, and of course, this is not a demo. This is not, we've pulled some screenshots, and those of you who have seen the system probably have already seen this, but we wanted to at least show you a little bit of content, from the Oracle recruiting system, and highlight some of the areas where it functions so well. From a candidate experience, I've mentioned this. It's the ease of use. The career site landing page, can be configured to whatever the customer is. You can have rich content like you see down here in the jobs, videos, images. Also, the candidate browsing history. It's a CRM system. It's got that CRM functionality where it keeps track of what candidates browse, and that browsing history can be used to proactively then present information about jobs and opportunities that could be a good fit. And it does that without the candidate, having to do that. It's true CRM. Only the email address as an application. Again, the deferred registration. They don't have to set up a user ID and password and put in a password confirmation and email confirmation at that point and get frustrated and leave. The search is a Google-like search. Just start typing. Supports Boolean. It helps them get to what they need to get to quickly. And for those candidates that have used the web, use Google, which most of us had, and it's very straightforward. And the job details, like I mentioned this, it's much more than just a description. It contains videos, job descriptions, location, job sharing through social media. So it's truly built to the latest and greatest best practices within within the recruiting space. It is one of the latest applications, one of the most highly rated on the Gartner. It's been designed to be world class. From a digital assistant perspective, when you're on the page, when you're on a candidate page, there's a little digital assistant in the bottom right. You click that, and then you have the ability to interact with that. You can ask for types of jobs. You can see here, this is some examples of just talking to it. Would you consider a junior candidate? What are the career opportunities? It presents a career development path. You can also use it to find a job. You can use it to apply to a job. Put in your resume, and you can go through the entire application just through the digital assistant, as opposed to going through the main process. Fairly new. A lot of companies are using them, but I know the newer generation, younger generations of applicants, they're used to things like this, and they count on them. From a hiring manager experience, those of us familiar with HCM, they still go to their same, My Team. They see a hiring tile, so there's a new tile in there. They don't have to go to a different application, a different login. They can access it off the same, where they access their manager self-service. They can go to the hiring tile and see all their requisitions. They can see the activities that are on their requisitions, the number of candidates that they're able to see. Now, of course, in the application process, it's still built with recruiting in mind, and they're going to see only the candidates that they're that have been moved to hiring manager, that have been exposed to them. So it still implements those best practices. They can click into those candidates. They can see a lot of graphical details, rich graphics as far as the timeline of activities, be it previous employment, be it education. So instead of having to read through a bunch of content, it puts that information out there in a graphical type of visual, ease of use type of format. From a new hire experience, obviously, your onboarding process. The difference in OR is you're sending data directly into HCM. You're not capturing data in OR and then sending an integration that goes periodically. When you're working in OR, when you send that candidate to HR, it's going into HCM as a pending worker. At that point, you kick off some HCM tasks. HCM has been built out to support these onboardings tasks. There's differentiation. There's a set of tasks you might want to do before their first day. When they've accepted the job, when they're in as a pending worker, you can start rolling out these pre-hire tasks, like information about when and where to show up for your first day of work, welcome videos, confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure agreements. What are some other agreements that you might have? Data and security type of agreements. Maybe upload their education certificates, other documentation into their document of records. And then on their first day, there might be, another task that is, things like their verifying their personal details, their full legal name, let them fill out their benefits information, do a survey, obviously W-4, I-9 type of information, all supported through, an e-signature and information directly into HCM. Again, everything they're putting in, it's in HCM, so there's no integration, no having to wait for the data to get over. And these are just screenshots of actual onboarding processes and what can be done. From an analytics perspective, I mentioned a little bit ago, one of the advantages of this, it's part again of HCM. It's a module, and so you have access through the analytics. This is OTBI here. Obviously, a lot of stuff built out of the box. This is just a screen on sourcing analytics. I have a whole bunch of different slides that I could have put up there as far as out of the box analytics. But then from a development or report building, every company has their own needs. You have the full OTBI and BI functionality to be able to build out additional analytics. And then again, you're not just limited to recruiting. You can cross different modules, different databases, and combine data within this like you can't with with Taleo and other independent HCM app or ATS applications. Okay, I think those are some of the key things we wanted to show you. Just how, if you're interested in OR, which I'm sure you are at this point, to take you through what we've developed as a pathway to adopt OR and move from Taleo over into Oracle recruiting. Obviously, requires the Oracle Cloud HR. That's a part of since it's a native module. I'm sure you realize that you're either HCM customers, you're looking to move to HCM and want to plug in OR as the recruiting to take the place of your Taleo. Bonnie, do you want to take this? Talk about next steps or?
Sure, I will. Thank you, Calvin. We appreciate all the information you shared today. Just want to follow up with, so every client is different, right? So let's make sure that we're addressing your needs. So not everybody has the same path or can or has the desire to go the same way with their data migration and so forth. So please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have you do a detailed product demo for you if you want to do a dive into some functionality on Oracle recruiting, or if you're ready to really talk about that migration, let's set up an assessment. Our Taleo assessment is going to help you understand how your current process and current setup today maps over to Oracle Recruiting Cloud. So love to hear from each and every one of you on the line today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, Bonnie M at Evosys Global, and we're happy to help. I don't see any questions that came in, Calvin, so you must have done such a great job. No one has any questions.
Either that or I put them all to sleep, one or the other.
I hope not. But we'd certainly look forward to hearing from everybody. Please feel free to reach out, and thanks for your time this afternoon.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, Raj.
Thanks, guys. Have a good afternoon.